Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Friday, September 22nd, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. First up, an afternoon game between the Colorado Rockies and the Chicago Cubs. There's no official starter for Chicago right now, but I am seeing Jameson Taillon listed on ESPN, so he could be the starter. Noah Davis going for Colorado. Now, Davis has actually been pretty solid on the road this season in a small sample size, just when you look at the ERA, but it is a concern that he has 7 walks allowed in the 13 2/3 innings on the road. I do think the Cubs will be able to get to him in this game. Chicago, a good lineup against right-handed pitchers this season. On the other side, Taillon's been better at Wrigley Field this year, but still an ERA at 5 at Wrigley. And even though the Rockies are not a great lineup on the road, I think they'll be able to chip in a few runs against him. They were able to get to him last time they faced him, which was Taillon's last start at Coors Field. It was 5 innings of 7 base hits, 5 total runs given up in a 7-3 Rockies win. A lean for me to the over and the Cubs on the money line, but not my favorite game on the board. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to see Luis Ortiz and Andrew Abbott on the mound in this one. I'm not in love with the form that Andrew Abbott is in right now. His control's been off quite a bit. He's only gone 3 2/3 and 4 innings his last 2 starts because he had 3 walks apiece in those games against the Mets and Cardinals. And, the Pittsburgh Pirates aren't a great lineup against lefties, but I do think at Great American Ballpark, hitter-friendly ballpark, they'll be able to get to him for a few runs. And when you look at Cincinnati's bullpen, we saw them blow the lead in the game against Minnesota, the final game of that series. And in the last month, they have the 3rd highest SIERA in baseball. So I think Pittsburgh chips in some runs. We saw him score some runs in that Wrigley Field series with the Cubs. Luis Ortiz, not my favorite option on the mound. On the other side, I think, we look at his last game against the Yankees, a team that's been struggling mightily against righties. Ortiz still gave up in 4 2/3 innings, 4 earned runs, 6 base hits, and a home run with 6 walks to go with it. Ortiz's control's also been, really rough this year. 44 walks in 78 innings of work, a 44-50 walk-to-strikeout ratio, not what you want to see. I think we see a high-scoring game here. Give me the over at Great American Ballpark. Next up, the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Miami Marlins. No official starter for the Fish, but we should see Corbin Burnes going for Milwaukee. I'm going to lean towards the Marlins in this game. It's not my favorite game on the board, but when you look at Miami, they're still playing for a National League wildcard spot, while the Brewers pretty much have the NL Central title wrapped up. They haven't clinched it yet, but they're pretty much going to. They're up by 7 games going into Thursday's games. And Corbin Burnes, even though he's been better on the road this season with a sub-3 ERA, the Brewers are 0-3 in his last 3 road starts, including 2 losses to teams that aren't going to be in the postseason this year in the Yankees and Pirates. And we've seen Burnes give up 4 or more runs in 3 of his last 5 games. The Marlins have actually been pretty solid against right-handed pitching in the last 30 days. A very low strikeout rate, decent OPS and isolated power numbers. In a must-win game, I'm going to take the Marlins here at home at Lone Depot Park on the money line. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to see no official lineup for this game, so we could see a pitching change, but Chris Bassitt and Tyler Glasnow are the listed starters. And Glasnow's been really sharp at Tropicana Field, a 4-2 record with a 2.81 ERA, 76 strikeouts, and only 51 1/3 innings. I know his last start was not a great one against the Orioles, but that was on the road, as well as the previous start against the Twins, also on the road. Glasnow's been just a much better pitcher at home this season, and I'm going to say Chris Bassitt's also not fared too well on the road this year for Toronto. He's got really good numbers at Rogers Center, but an ERA above 4.6 away from home. I think the Rays get to him. The Rays lineup very strong against right-handed pitchers in the last 30 days. Give me the Tampa Bay Rays on the money line. I think the better starting pitcher, the better lineup, and the better bullpen. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We see Brandon Pfaadt for Arizona, no official starter for New York. I know Brandon Pfaadt's got an ERA above 5.8, but I think he pitched really well in his last game against the Cubs. It was not an easy spot because he struggled against Chicago the outing before. Back on September 10th, he gave up 4 earned runs and 3 home runs. He bounced back and went 5 1/3 of shutout baseball against Chicago the next game, 6 strikeouts and a 6-4 Diamondbacks win. These are must-win games for Arizona. Looks like the Yankees kind of mailed it in right now, even though they're still playing for that winning season streak dating back to 1992. The Yankees lineup is just not really competitive right now. When you look at the top 4, obviously guys like LeMahieu, Torres, Stanton, Judge, but the bottom half of that lineup, a lot of prospects that aren't doing too well at the major league level. So to me, the Yankees just aren't competitive right now, especially against right-handed pitching. I think Pfaadt's better than his current ERA. I think the Diamondbacks need this game. So give me Arizona on the money line. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Washington Nationals. Charlie Morton and Patrick Corbin are your starters. this is an ugly game. It's going to be an ugly pick, so bear with me. I know you guys are probably going to be wanting to take Atlanta. I understand why. I mean, Patrick Corbin's got an ERA at 5. The Braves are the best team in baseball. However, even though Patrick Corbin has that ERA at 5.00 this season, he is one of the more profitable pitchers, believe it or not, in baseball this year. If you placed a $100 wager on Patrick Corbin or on the Nationals money line every time Patrick Corbin was on the mound, you would be way up over $1,000. So to me, I think there's some value with the Nationals in this game with Corbin pitching as well as he has as of late. 2 quality starts, his last 2 starts against Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. It was 6 innings of 1-run ball and then 6 innings of 2-run ball the last 2 games. Charlie Morton on the other side is not in good form at all. His last 2 games, which were on the road, by the way, giving up in 10 2/3 innings, 10 earned runs, 12 base hits, and 9 walks. The control's been way off for Charlie Morton. He's facing a lineup in Washington that does not strike out much. For a strikeout-dependent starter who has control issues right now, that's not what you want to see. Throughout Morton's career, he's been better at home, just like this season where he's at an ERA above 4 on the road, much better at home. To me, laying this kind of price with the Braves, just not in my wheelhouse. I'm going to take the Washington Nationals plus the 1.5 runs. You can even take 2.5 runs, a little bit more steeper of a price, but I think the Nationals at least cover this run line. Next up, we go to the Apple TV game between the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. Tyler McGill and Taijuan Walker are your starters. I bet at the beginning of the season when we saw this game on the schedule, we figured it'd be a pretty important game for playoff situations. But obviously the New York Mets, one of the more disappointing teams in baseball this year, well out of the contention for the National League wild card. And the Phillies right in the mix there. They are looking pretty good in the National League wild card race. But Taijuan Walker's been really strong at Citizens Bank Park this season. He's been better there with a 3.59 ERA and a 7-2 record. The Phillies lineup has crushed righties in the last month, and I think they'll be able to get Tyler McGill, who's been inconsistent as of late. Didn't love what I saw from him in his last game against the Reds because even though it was only 2 earned runs given up in 5 2/3 innings, he still gave up a home run. He only had 2 strikeouts and 9 base hits given up in that game. So a lot of base runners given up from Tyler McGill, and the Mets are 2-3 in his last 5 starts. Not to mention McGill on the road this year, 2-5 with an ERA above 7. Give me the Philadelphia Phillies on the run line and money line in this one. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Dean Kramer and Shane Bieber are your starters. Dean Kramer is the most profitable pitcher in baseball this year, and Shane Bieber, I didn't love what I saw from him really before the injury at the major league level. 117 innings, only 95 strikeouts. The strikeout numbers from way down this year, and the control is off a bit as well. The last 2 games before the injury, he gave up 4 earned runs apiece. You're facing one of the toughest lineups in baseball, the Baltimore Orioles, a lineup that already got to you back on May 31st. It was 4 innings of 8 base hits, 7 earned run ball given up from Shane Bieber. I can't trust him here. Give me the Baltimore Orioles on the money line. Next up, we see the Battle of the Sox. We're going to see the Chicago White Sox and the Boston Red Sox. Chris Sale and Touki Toussaint are your projected starters. The White Sox numbers against lefties in the last month, the power numbers are there, but the OPS is near the bottom of the league. The strikeout rate is through the roof at 26%, and the walk rate 4.5%, the lowest in baseball. For a starting pitcher like Chris Sale, who's had some issues with his control here and there in his career and this season, this is actually a really good matchup for him. I think he racks up the strikeouts in this game. Maybe worth a look at taking the over strikeouts for Chris Sale's pitching props, but I think Sale gives the Red Sox a quality outing here. Touki Toussaint's kind of been inconsistent this year. We saw him give up only 1 run across 5 innings last game against the Twins, but he still has an ERA above 5, and the expected numbers aren't great either. He's got decent strikeout numbers with 52 walks given up in 76 2/3 innings. Aren't going to get the job done. You're facing a tough lineup against righties in the Boston Red Sox. Give me the Red Sox on the run line, land the 1.5 runs. Next up, it's a great AL West matchup between the Seattle Mariners and Texas Rangers. Should be a fun weekend series with a lot of playoff implications. And for Game 1, we're going to see Bryce Miller and Dane Dunning as the starters. Bryce Miller has not pitched too well on the road this year, and I know it was a long time ago, but he faced these Rangers at Globe Life Field. He only started against Texas this season, and in 2 1/3 innings, he gave up 8 base hits and 7 earned runs in a 12-3 Rangers win, while Dane Dunning on the other side, not my favorite starting pitcher to back, but he has a quality start and win against these Seattle Mariners this season. I'm going to go with the Rangers in this game, playing at home. Very strong lineup against right-handed pitchers. Both of these teams have really good numbers against righties in the last 30 days, but I trust Dunning a little bit more on the mound to start this game. Now, this Rangers bullpen's not the best, so maybe take the Rangers in the first 5 innings because I do think the Mariners have the advantage if this is a close game late. So I'll take the Rangers in the first 5 innings on the money line. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Minnesota Twins. Tyler Anderson and Pablo Lopez are your starters. Now, we've known Pablo Lopez this season to be a starting pitcher that does better on the road than at Target Field. However, his last start at home back on September 10th could have been his best start of the season. It was against the New York Mets. 8 innings of 14 strikeouts, shutout baseball, no walks, and only 2 base hits given up. And even before that game, the last home start before that one was back on August 29th against the Guardians. A quality start there for Pablo Lopez. So he's improving at home, which is important down the stretch here of the regular season. And he's facing an Angels team that in the last month, we've talked about it a few times, without Ohtani and without Trout in the lineup, this team has suffered offensively against lefties and against righties. I think Pablo Lopez puts together another quality start at home in this one. And I think the Twins' bats go to work against Tyler Anderson in this weak Angels bullpen. Give me the Twins on the run line. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Houston Astros. Cole Ragans and Framber Valdez are your starters. We've talked about how Cole Ragans has been one of the best stories in the second half of the season. He's been one of the better starting pitchers in the American League in the second half of the year, but he struggled against these Houston Astros. It made sense. This Astros lineup is so tough on lefties. They have very low strikeout rate and a high walk rate, which doesn't bode well for somebody like Ragans, and they also have great power numbers and OPS numbers to go with it. So Ragans gave up in 6 innings of work, 5 earned runs. Now, the Royals actually went on to win that game, 10-8 the final score, but now in this one facing Framber Valdez, I don't think the Royals have much of a chance here. Framber Valdez is in really good form, possibly his best form of the season. In the month of September, 21 innings and a 1.71 ERA. He's gone at least 7 innings in each of his first 3 starts. So back to that classic, almost every single outing quality start Framber Valdez form we're used to seeing. I think he pitches well here. I think he gives the Astros another quality start. I think the Astros bats back him up. And even if they don't get to Ragans, they should be able to get to this weak Kansas City bullpen. So give me the Astros laying the 1.5 runs at Minute Maid Park. Next up, the Detroit Tigers taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see Sawyer Gipson-Long and Ken Waldichuk on the mound in this one. It's only going to be the 3rd career start at the Major League level for Gipson-Long, and I got to admit, he's pitching pretty well for Detroit. I didn't see it coming because he was struggling a bit in minor league play, but in the majors so far, 2 outings against the White Sox and Angels. Granted, 2 of the weaker teams in the American League, but you're facing a weak team here in the Oakland Athletics. And in those 10 innings, giving up only 3 runs, 2.7 ERA with 16 strikeouts. He had 11 strikeouts his last game against Los Angeles. I think he pitches well. I think it's another beneficial matchup for him against a weak lineup. And Ken Waldichuk, a lefty. The Tigers have hit lefties very well in the last month. They should be able to get to him for a few runs to win this game, possibly cover the run line in the end. So give me Detroit here. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the San Diego Padres. Dakota Hudson and Matt Waldron are your starters. We have 2 starting pitchers that have steep ERAs, not very good expected numbers. Neither of these bullpens have been, consistently good this year. And still 2 teams that, even though they're having really disappointing seasons, have strong lineups and could put up some runs. I'm going to take the over in this game. Like I said, Hudson and Waldron, both ERAs above 5 this season. The expected numbers aren't on their side. They don't really miss a lot of bats, especially Hudson. 40 strikeouts in 70 in the 3rd innings with a lot of walks to go with it. At least 3 walks in 4 of his last 5 starts. Give me the over here in St. Louis, San Diego. And the final game we're going to talk about for Friday's card in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Sean Manaea for San Francisco, no official starter for Los Angeles. Could be a bullpen game for the Dodgers. If that's the case, this bullpen's been in great form in the last month, a 2.01 ERA with the 2nd best SIERA in baseball. Sean Manaea, not my favorite option to back. A lefty facing a Dodgers team that we know hits lefties very well, especially in the power department. I think Manaea struggles, and he struggled on the road this year with an ERA above 6. I know this is a virtual must-win for San Francisco, but I don't think they get it. Give me the Los Angeles Dodgers laying the 1.5 runs. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.